Hey everybody, welcome into the devotion today. The morning devo with Beau. It is Acts 23, and hope you guys are doing good. Craig, I'm glad you're still watching the devotions, and no problem with the reminder, man. My joy, my blessing. Glad you could just use the devotions to go through the Bible and get in the Word a little bit and kind of just get your mind kind of focused a little bit on some cool things and relevant things. I mean, the Bible is so relevant. Boy, I didn't think so growing up. Thought it was just a book written by a mad monk on a mountain somewhere. I used to say things like that. I don't know if you used to say things like that, but I used to say things like that. Who wrote the Bible? Oh, the Bible was written by, mad church monks that wanted your money. And so they got together and schemed this amazing collection of books called the Bible. Actually, I didn't even know, I hate to admit this, but I didn't know that the Bible was a collection of books. I thought the Bible was actually one book, like one literal book, written by a mad monk, in the monastery somewhere, who had this amazing agenda to somehow fleece the flock. But that's what I was told, in my progressive world. And so that's what I believed. I wonder if the college students today simply just believe what they are told as well. I wonder if the high school students just believe what they are told too. It's funny, they might leave Christianity and go to secular progressivism only to join another church. And that's what it takes years to finally realize that. But then you just join another group. You join secular progressive philosophy. You join the humanist movement. And then you just become part of that church. And you listen to those pastors and preachers. And you have those evangelists. And you have, the wonderful prophets of progressivism, and lo and behold, you're as zealous as ever, right? You're just as zealous forever for your evangelism, right? And so you do your activism, not knowing that you've just joined another church, so to speak. And that's what I find fascinating with human beings, is just you can't get out of the bubble, man. You are going to worship no matter where you go. You just fall in line. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of my background. Acts 23. Mike, what's happening? I must say I was out and about in around town at around, 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, just praying and having a good time, seeking the Lord. It was beautiful. There's a lot of clouds out, a little bit of rain. And Mike, I thought of you and I prayed for you, and I thought of, you guys that love the golf, Michael and Mike, the Mikes out there, so I was thinking of you guys too, and just the golf. I thought today would be a great day for golf here, the early morning shift on the course. But okay, chapter 23. Let's see. It says, gazing intently at the high council, Paul began, "Brothers, I have always lived before God with a clear conscience." Okay, man, that's pretty amazing statement. I've always lived with God with a clear conscience. Now, instantly Ananias the high priest commanded those close to Paul to slap him on the mouth. But Paul said to him, "God will slap you, you corrupt hypocrite. What kind of judge are you to break the law yourself by ordering me struck like that?" So obviously, Paul shouldn't have been struck like that, shouldn't have been hit in this manner. It was against the law at the time to, someone that's on trial, so to speak, to just go slap the dude. But Ananias did that. Why? Because Paul said, I have always lived before God with a clear conscience. Obviously, that offended Ananias, who Ananias thought Paul was a blasphemer in a way, and one that was deserving to die for his blasphemy against the law of Moses. So that's kind of what's going on here. And it says, those standing near Paul said to him, do not dare to insult God's high priest. Paul said, I'm sorry, brothers, I did not realize he was the high priest. Paul replied, for the scriptures say you must not speak evil of any of your rulers. Now, I find this a real convicting thing this morning. Listen to this. You must not speak evil of any of your rulers. It's a quote from Exodus 22:28. I'll repeat it. You must not speak evil of any of your rulers. Now, Ananias, if you do your own Bible study, maybe not the best dude in the world. Paul, before him, gets slapped after Paul says, hey, I have been serving the Lord with a clear conscience. And he probably said that confidently. Ananias took offense to that in the courtroom because of what Ananias thought was blasphemy and deserving of the death penalty. And maybe there was some past things too going on. Who knows what was in Ananias' heart, but definitely didn't like what Paul was saying. And struck Paul. But I'm just convicted already in my heart to know that you must not speak the evil of any of your rulers. Paul, before a corrupt dude, says you must not speak evil of any of your rulers. How much more should I speak not of evil of our rulers, even though they might not be doing the right thing. They might have wrong motivations. They might be, falsed out people. They might be, loose people, meaning loose with their morals kind of people. That kind of thing. And I would imagine if you went into the church today and you said, hey, everybody, let's not speak evil of any of our rulers. How about we do that? How about we learn to love our enemies? How about we love God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, love our enemies, do good, love our neighbor, and, not speak evil of any of our rulers. I bet you that would be, 99% of the church would be like, yikes. That's a good message for me, right? Yeah, because we tend to listen to podcast after podcast, video after video, and it just, man, pumps us up to what? To hate people. Isn't that amazing? I just got to tell you that when you're raised progressive, you literally listen to things that all it does is tell you to hate, Christianity, and hate the conservative people, and hate those people that are just in a monogamy, and hate those people that are just into heterosexual monogamy. That's kind of what you're bred to do. And then you listen to the other side, the conservative side, and they do the same exact thing with the other people. It's unbelievably maddening to go from one extreme to the other to find very similar behavior. I'm just letting you know. And it says, okay, so don't speak evil of any of your rulers. Paul realized that some members of the high council were Sadducees and some were Pharisees. Now, Paul already admitted that he was a member of this at one point. And so could you imagine him hanging out there? Everybody knows Paul, I would imagine. Many people do. Paul, in a sense, is famous. He's educated. He's smart. He was taught by Gamaliel. He was taught in an incredibly intellectual university setting with the top professor, giving him accolades. I mean, Paul was known. He spoke many languages. He was a Roman citizen. He already had spoken at the Areopagus in Greece. I mean, man, dude, you've already talking to the Stoics and the Epicureans, and all that. People were discussing, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. And this is Paul. I mean, Paul is not Beau. He's not the dude, not that guy. He's the guy. He's a guy who really was, man, on task. And Paul sees the council. He recognizes that there's Pharisees and Sadducees there, two groups that have a lot of conflict with one another over theological matters. And so Paul shouts, "Brothers, I am a Pharisee, as were my ancestors, and I am on the trial because my hope is in the resurrection of the dead." Okay. Paul uses something that I could use today too. Not only one, don't speak evil of even your leaders. Two, use some tact, right? Look at the situation and use some discernment over. And Paul looks at what can really be to his advantage here. Paul doesn't just succumb to a fatalistic viewpoint of his being arrested, but he sees that, there is a way to potentially get out. There's a way to potentially, find a way through. And God has given him a mind, and he uses that mind. Pharisees, Sadducees, theological issue, the resurrection. Some believe, some don't. So he uses that, and he says, hey, I'm a Pharisee, as were my ancestors. Paul, was from the tribe of Benjamin, Saul's tribe. Saul, King David, that rivalry. Paul was from Saul's tribe. Pretty radical, right? Not a great tribe. Go back into the book of Judges and read about that tribe, Benjamin. Rough go at the end, right, of the book of Judges. I mean, there's some history with this tribe. But, during the interbiblical times, is when the Pharisees came to be. And Paul seems to trace his lineage all the way back there. Saying, hey, I'm a Pharisee of Pharisees. Man, the Pharisees, my ancestors were Pharisees. Man, when those Pharisees started, my Benjamite family was right there. And so pretty interesting. And then he says, this divided the council and the Pharisees against the Sadducees. For the Sadducees say there is no resurrection or angels or spirits, but the Pharisees believe in all of these. So there was a great uproar. Some of the teachers of religious law who were Pharisees jumped up and began to argue forcefully. We see nothing wrong with him, they shouted. Perhaps a spirit or an angel spoke to him. As the conflict grew more violent, the commander was afraid they would tear Paul apart, so he ordered his soldiers to go and rescue him by force and take him back to the fortress. So much for nice, peaceful, religious people, right? Oh, religious people are so nice. They're so peaceable, right? Isn't it amazing how it doesn't matter if you're an atheist dictator or you're a religious, country? Both just can do incredibly gnarly things. As far as violence goes, it is just in the human condition to go, rogue, man, to really go at it with other people. Anger is a big issue with us. Anger, hate, right? I mean, man, just the amount of visceral hate that is in us, where people want to, kill people Oh, I wish that bullet hit that person. Oh, I wish this hit this person. Oh, because people want to kill. Murder is in us. Thou shalt not murder. Man, we have blown it, And you can just look at the world. Take your pick on who you want to, what group you want to single out in your podcast, because you can do it. And the Flip podcast can be done. Democracy Now, right? The progressive, news network. Everything they say can just be flipped. Whoever they're bagging on and who they hate, you listen to those people and they're hating on Democracy Now. And it just goes, like I said, it's just, oh man, it's horrible. So here you have these religious people squandering, and Paul's there in the middle. And it says, so he ordered his soldiers to go and rescue him by force and take him back to the fortress. And that night the Lord appeared to Paul and said, be encouraged. Man, be encouraged. Hey, what you did in there was pretty awesome, Paul. That was great, man. You said, hey, I'm here. I'm a Pharisee. My ancestors are Pharisees, and I'm here for the resurrection. Man, that's what it's about. And they just, boom, went at it over that theological issue, literally in blows. And Paul must have been just absolutely bummed out and discouraged. This is what Paul used to be. Paul said he was an insolent man, a violent man, and here he sees the violence of those that he was on the council with, going at it. And God says, be encouraged. Oh, I bet he was super sad. Sometimes we have burdens for the world, and some people have more of a heavy burden where they look at the world and they see the destruction of the world. They see the destruction of human beings. They see the sin in human beings, and it hurts them. And it really has an effect to bring them down. And I love that God's message to Paul in that moment is, be encouraged, man. Be encouraged. Because when you look at this world and you see, the secular and the religious and the fighting, then there's not much hope. But Paul says to us, God says to us, be encouraged. Just as you have been a witness to me here with me in Jerusalem, you must preach the good news in Rome as well. So what does God say? Hey, you've done a good job. You preached me in Jerusalem. That's what I'm asking you to do. And now it's time to go to Rome. And notice it's about, hey, this is what it is. Just proclaim me and then move on. It's okay if you move on. You don't have to, you don't have to convert people. You don't have to force them. You don't have to coerce them to convert. You don't have to try to, I need to talk to them again and again and again and again and again and again. No, you lay out the gospel and pray. Let the Lord do the work of revealing. Someone shared with me at a university in Montana State University when I was 16 years old, the gospel. First time I ever heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. I was 16 years old with Johnny Carson's son and a very famous guitar player. We were in a class, and he shared the gospel of Jesus Christ. And there it was, did I convert? No. Did I think much about it? Not much. But as months went on, man, something started happening. And then, it's like that seed starts to grow. So you don't have to convert people. You don't have to coerce. You don't have to beg. You share. God says, hey, you did good, man. You shared in Jerusalem. A lot of people warned Paul not to go to Jerusalem. But God says, hey, be encouraged, man. You shared there. That's cool. So the next morning, a group of Jews got together and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 of them in the conspiracy. They went to the leading priests and elders and told them, we have bound ourselves with an oath to eat nothing until we have killed Paul. So you and the high council should ask the commander to bring Paul back to the council again. Pretend you want to examine his case more fully, and we will kill him on the way. But Paul's nephew, Isn't that cool? Paul's nephew, dude. He had a nephew. That means it must have been his sister's son, right? Yeah, his sister's son had a kid. That was Paul's nephew. Heard of their plan and went to the fortress and told Paul, hey, Paul, hey, uncle. Man, uncle, this is what's going on. I just find that cool. The family unit, man, going at it, sticking together. Paul called one of the Roman officers and said, take this young man to the commander. He has something important to tell him. So the officer did, explaining, Paul, the prisoner, called me over to ask me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you. The commander took his hand, led him aside, and asked, what is it you want to tell me? Now, I love this. Paul's nephew really has some boldness here, man. I mean, here you are before, Roman folk. Man, this must be a little intimidating. Paul's nephew told him, some Jews are going to ask you to bring Paul before the high council tomorrow, before the religious high council, pretending they want to get some more information, but don't do it. There are more than 40 men hiding along the way to ambush him. They have vowed not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They are ready now, just waiting for you to consent. Don't let anyone know you told me this, the commander warned the young man. So he's probably a teenager, something like that, I guess. And what's cool is it's great God's using the young man, right? He's using the nephew to be able to help Paul out in this situation. I mean, Paul's stuck. He really is not in a good spot. But who's God going to use? The young dude, the young man. Hey, young people, man, be used by God, right? Open yourself up to being used by the Holy Spirit. And man, amazing things can happen. Dedicate your life to studying the Bible, to coming underneath the rabbi, the true teacher, and that is Jesus. And man, you will learn so much from him. And then you can go out and be a help, to people. And then the commander called two of his officers and ordered, get 200 soldiers. That's a group ready to leave for Caesarea at 9 o'clock tonight, and also take 200 spearmen, so 400 people, and 70 mounted troops, 470 armed to the teeth. I mean, you got spearmen, you got an army. Provide horses for Paul to ride and get him safely to Governor Felix. Wow, over 400 people to escort Paul. Now, if 400 people were escorting you, from, say, I don't know, Tucson to Casa Grande, right? From, the valley in California to Santa Barbara, do you think with 400 plus people, an army? I mean, you must be pretty important. And so the vibe that you get is that Paul really was somebody. It's not just he was just this Jewish Pharisee and just kind of no-namer guy. No, this dude was a dude that was known, and he was a dude that had some fame to him. And he was a guy who was kind of had a huge following, if you will. People listened to Paul. 400 plus people. Wow. And from Claudius Lysias to his excellency. This is what this letter wrote that was going to be taken. Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by some Jews, and they were about to kill him when I arrived with the troops. When I learned that he was a Roman citizen, I removed him to safety. Then I took him to their high council to try and learn the basics of the accusations against him. I soon discovered the charge was something regarding their religious law, certainly nothing worthy of imprisonment or death. But when I was informed of a plot to kill him, I immediately sent him to you. I have told his accusers to bring their charges before you. Okay, now there's something cool in this letter that I wish we would pay more attention to. And it says this. I took them to their high council to try and learn the basics of the accusation against them. I soon discovered the charge was something regarding their religious law. Certainly nothing worthy of imprisonment or death. certainly nothing important or nothing worthy of imprisonment and death. Oh boy, do I wish this devotion could just go out over the airwaves of the entire world so people could read the letter, right, that is going to Governor Felix. Please, don't, this isn't worthy. The issue of the resurrection of the dead in the disagreement that you have in religious matters isn't worthy of imprisonment and death. Yet how many people are imprisoned and put to death because of their religious beliefs? So many. So many people are literally in a jail today. They're in a prison today because of their belief in the resurrection of the dead, or their belief that Jesus was the Messiah and paid a price, atoned for their sins, offering forgiveness. And people are imprisoned for other beliefs too, some other ones, for this belief or that belief, right? They're imprisoned. And I love, this is a Roman official who says, certainly nothing worthy of imprisonment or death, meaning even the Roman official gets it. Man, you don't need to be imprisoning and killing someone, right, over this. But yet there's entire countries that do this, right? Yeah. Just look at our comment corner. How many countries will imprison you because of your religious beliefs? Meaning if you got on a plane today and you flew there and you got off and you did your religious beliefs, could you be arrested? Potentially could you be arrested because of your religious beliefs? That's pretty intense. If your religious beliefs are to overthrow the government, if that's your religious belief, like, hey, my religious belief is to overthrow this government and to kill everybody, then okay, I could see you being arrested, and put in jail for that. But if your religion has nothing to do with overthrowing the government and killing people, then is it really worthy of imprisonment or death? The resurrection, the debate about the resurrection. And what's scary is there are religious beliefs that really believe that it's okay to go into a country and kill people and overthrow that government's belief system or its if you will, governing rules. There are religions that really believe that, and man, you got to take note of that. If the religion wants you out and wants to overthrow, man, I could see where, that's going to be a problem. But a lot of religious beliefs aren't like that. A lot of people's, religious convictions have to do with theological issues. And I like how there was a distinction made. The Roman guy had a distinction. Hey, this issue isn't an issue where this guy should be imprisoned, I wish we could have better discernment and understanding on these matters. So that night, man, great list, Michael. And a pretty shocking list at that you lay out in the comment corner. It says, so that night, as ordered, the soldiers took Paul as far as Antipatris, and they returned to the fortress the next morning. Meanwhile, the mounted troops took him on to Caesarea, and when they arrived at Caesarea, they presented Paul and the letter to Governor Felix. He read it and then asked Paul what province he was from, and he said, Cilicia. Paul answered, I will hear your case myself. When your accusers arrive, the governor told him. Then the governor ordered him kept in the prison at Herod's headquarters. Okay, so a place called Herod's headquarters, maybe that's the place where Herod comes and visits, but Paul says, I'm from Cilicia, and he is in Caesarea right now with Governor Felix presiding and governing over that area. And Governor Felix says, I'm going to take care of your case. I'm going to take on your case myself. And so we will see what happens. But boy, we really see a lot of hate in this chapter, don't we? I mean, it really kind of comes out in chapter 3. It really shows, do we see this kind of behavior in our world? Yes. Do we see this kind of hate? Yes. Do we see religious hate? Yes, we do see a lot of religious hate. Do we see, very secular religion hating, religious people? Yes. Do we see religious people hating secular people? Yes. I mean, you see hate universally. That's a real issue. We see a lot of discernment too in the chapter. Paul discerning, Paul, really looking at a situation and going, hey, what can I do, God? And notice how God responds to Paul by a lot of encouragement. And remember that focus of just, hey, the blessing and the encouragement of just saying, hey, you shared, and man, great. And now it's time to, I'm going to move you on. And, Paul wanted to go to Jerusalem really bad. It was on his heart. I mean, this is his crew, his people. He wants to share in front of the Pharisees. Man, this is his thing. But he's told, hey, it's time to move on. It's time to go. And we got to realize that there's times where we get to stay and share, and there's times where we have to move on. And, and we can't just stay to the old. We don't want to be old wineskins, man, right? We want to be new wine. What is it? New wine and wineskins that are pliable, right? That can bend. And so when God says, hey, it's time to move on, we move on, kind of thing. So very cool. Woo, yeah. Jesus said, if they hated me, they will hate you also. And they certainly do hate Paul. And they hate one another too. Boy. And that's it. Hate just knows no bounds, right? It just, someone's hating you, they're going to hate someone else as well because they love hate. It's just sad. Hey, Jesus, man, offers something totally, totally different, right? To be a part of a kingdom that is not of this world. Wow. That's not separate from the world in the sense of, we, get out, we're in escapism. It's we listen to someone who's not of this world. We're not just listening to someone who's in this world, of this world, the same old thing over and over, right? Flawed people. But instead we're listening to God who loves us so much, who entered our world and showed us the way. Showed us how to live, how to trust God, how to obey, how to lay down your life for people, how to care for one another, how to love, how to have compassion, how to submit, how to have meekness. I mean, this is all done not by just some prophet, but by God in human flesh. God loves you. God so loved the world. Man, that is powerful. And that is a love like no other. So, okay, you guys take care, okay? Have a great day. Bye-bye.